The galaxy had not seen peace in centuries. Empires rose and fell, species conquered and vanished, but none had ever forgotten the old stories, the stories of humans. Some said the humans had destroyed themselves. Others claimed they had vanished into deep space, too proud to surrender. Whatever the truth, humanity had been gone for hundreds of years. The galaxy believed it was safe again, until one silent signal appeared. It came from the edge of the Epsilon 7 Nebula, an empty zone filled with dead stars and drifting ice. The Galactic Council's Central Fleet received the ping, an ancient transmission code, one that hadn't been used since the human wars. For a moment, every commander froze. Then they laughed. "It must be debris," said Admiral Kareth of the Varn Dominion, his scaled face curling into a grin. "The humans are long dead." But the signal continued, repeating over and over. It carried only one line of text: HSS Retribution, en route. At first, the Council ignored it. Then their long-range sensors picked up movement. One object moving at impossible speed, cutting through the nebula like a blade. It wasn't debris. It was a ship. No one in the galaxy could believe it. A single human warship. It was madness. The Council quickly assembled a fleet, 1,000,000 ships strong. Every race that had once fought humanity joined in. They wanted to erase even the memory of that name. In the dark space above Epsilon 7, the fleet gathered. Thousands of ships glowed against the blackness, their engines burning blue and gold. The airwaves were full of noise, commands, threats, and nervous laughter. The alien admirals called it an easy victory. Then everything went silent. A shadow moved through the gas clouds. The first ships lost radar, then communications. The stars behind them dimmed. Slowly, through the haze, something massive appeared. A vessel larger than any they had ever seen. Its metal hull was black and scarred, its lights flickering like eyes waking from a long sleep. It was the HSS Retribution. The humans had returned. From the bridge of the Retribution, Captain Arlen Voss stood before the observation glass, watching the fleet that had gathered to destroy him. He was tall, calm, his uniform dark and simple. His eyes held no fear. Around him, the crew moved with silent precision. They were not like ordinary humans. They were something more, descendants of survivors who had evolved in the void, molded by war and isolation. "Enemy formation detected," said Lieutenant Mara, her voice steady. 1,000,000 ships, multiple species. They're locking weapons. Captain Voss nodded slowly. "Let them." The ship hummed as its ancient systems powered up. Lights crawled along its hull. Deep inside, reactors born from forbidden technology awakened. The Retribution was not just a ship. It was a fortress, a weapon built during humanity's final days, designed to fight until the last breath of the species. Outside, alien commanders shouted orders. The Council's supreme flagship broadcast a message. "Human vessel, you are trespassing in restricted space. Power down and surrender immediately. Resistance will mean destruction." The bridge of the Retribution remained silent. Captain Voss raised his eyes to the starfield ahead and said quietly, "They still do not understand us." He turned to his crew. "Activate the broadcast." A deep sound filled the void, a signal spreading across every frequency. It wasn't words at first, only a low, resonant tone that made ship hulls vibrate. Then in a voice cold and calm, the message came. "This is Captain Arlen Voss of the human starship Retribution. To the Galactic Council. Your wars ended when you destroyed Earth. Today they begin again." For a moment, no one spoke. Across thousands of alien ships, crew members stared at their screens in disbelief. The word human echoed through the channels like a ghost. Then the first admiral shouted, "Fire!" Thousands of plasma blasts streaked through the void. Missiles, beams, and energy waves filled space with light. The nebula turned into a storm of destruction. For a full minute, every gun in the galaxy fired upon the single human ship. When the dust cleared, the Retribution still stood. Its shields glowed faint blue, absorbing every particle of energy. The ship's surface didn't show a single scratch. Inside, power levels rose instead of falling. The Retribution was feeding on the attack, drinking the energy, turning it into fuel. On the alien command screens, panic spread. "That's not possible," shouted one commander. "Their hull, it's converting energy." Captain Voss looked down at his console. "They've shown us their strength," he said softly. "Now we show them ours." He lifted his hand and gave the order the galaxy would never forget. Arm main cannon. The ship's spine lit up with a deep blue glow. Energy gathered brighter and brighter until even the stars seemed to fade. The alien fleet tried to scatter, but it was too late. The Retribution fired. A single beam cut through space like lightning. The nearest formation, 10,000 ships, vanished in a flash. Shockwaves ripped through the nebula, scattering debris and light. Silence followed. On the bridge, no one spoke. The humans didn't cheer. They didn't shout victory. They only watched. Captain Voss's voice broke the silence. Prepare for their next move, he said. The galaxy will not surrender easily. Outside, the wreckage drifted, glowing red in the dying light of the star. The alien admirals were silent now. The Council's pride had shattered. One ship had survived the fury of 1,000,000 and answered with one shot. The war had only just begun. The alien fleet hovered in silence after the first strike. Thousands of sensors scanned the wreckage, trying to understand what had just happened. 10,000 ships were gone, erased by a single beam. Inside the HSS Retribution, the lights dimmed as power rerouted through massive conduits. The hum of the ship felt alive, like something breathing in the dark. Captain Arlen Voss stood still, his hands behind his back, watching the screen. The galaxy had just seen the first real weapon of humanity in centuries. And it was only beginning. Energy levels at 140%, said Lieutenant Mara. The reactor core is still absorbing what remains of their attack. Good, Voss replied. Let them see that their power only feeds us. Outside, the nebula glowed with the remains of battle, fragments of burning metal and drifting plasma clouds. The surviving alien ships pulled back, reforming into defensive lines. But fear had already spread through their ranks. They had fought countless wars, but never against something that refused to die. Admiral Kareth, commander of the Galactic Council fleet, shouted orders from his bridge. All remaining dreadnoughts, forward. Form an attack wall. They cannot take us all. He believed in numbers. He always had. From the alien armada, thousands of massive dreadnoughts moved ahead. Each one carried enough firepower to destroy a moon. Together, they looked like a moving wall of light. Captain Voss watched their movement through the transparent dome of the bridge. His reflection looked cold and unshaken. How many ships advancing? Approximately 3,000, said Mara. Good, he said quietly. That will be enough to test the second array. The human ship began to shift. Panels along its sides opened like mechanical wings. Rows of glowing cannons emerged, each humming with captured energy. A young officer turned to the captain. Sir, are we firing again? Voss looked out at the oncoming swarm. No, he said. We are answering. The alien dreadnoughts unleashed their fury. Blazing plasma, antimatter torpedoes, gravity pulses, all aimed at one target. The void turned into a storm. Waves of light collided with the Retribution's shields, bending around it like water. Inside, the crew stood silently as alarms echoed. But the captain didn't move. His voice remained calm. Hold course. Do not return fire until I give the signal. Seconds stretched into minutes. The bridge shook, but the hull held firm. The Retribution systems drank in the incoming energy, glowing brighter with each hit. When the lights dimmed again, the entire ship was ready. Now, said Voss. The Retribution's weapons activated. A deep pulse rippled through space. Not one beam this time, but a wave wide and blinding, moving faster than light. Every alien dreadnought caught in its path turned to dust. The galaxy had never seen a weapon like it. Not even during the ancient wars. The alien command ships started to fall back again, their formation broken. Panic filled the channels. Some ships tried to flee, others continued firing in blind fear. Admiral Kareth roared in fury. You think we will kneel to one ghost from a dead race? He slammed his clawed hand on the console. Signal the Legion. Bring in the planetary breakers. Far away, a portal tore open in space. 3 colossal ships entered. Machines larger than mountains, designed to wipe out entire planets. They glowed red, their weapons burning brighter than suns. The bridge lights of the Retribution flickered as the sensors read their signatures. Lieutenant Mara's voice trembled for the first time. Sir, those are planetary-class destroyers. Voss nodded slowly. So they have finally taken us seriously. He stepped forward. Charge the singularity cannon. Full power. The crew obeyed without hesitation. Deep inside the ship, Reactors fused light and gravity together. The temperature spiked. The hull groaned. Warning lights filled the bridge, but no one moved. Outside, the alien destroyers charged their own weapons. Massive beams built up between their cores, forming energy like a second sun. The space between them shimmered with violent light. Then the retribution fired. A single dark beam shot forward. Silent, invisible, pure gravitational force. It passed through the enemy's beams as if cutting through smoke. A moment later, the first destroyer vanished. Not exploded, vanished. Every atom torn apart and pulled into a black sphere that collapsed instantly. The shockwave pushed the other two ships away, breaking their aim. For the first time, the Galactic fleet realized the truth. The humans weren't just surviving, they had become something else. Something beyond their science, beyond reason. The Retribution glided through the wreckage like a shadow, its hull glowing from the absorbed energy. Around it, the battlefield was silent except for the static of dying transmissions. On the alien flagship, Admiral Kareth stared at the images. His voice dropped to a whisper. What kind of monsters did we wake? Back aboard the human ship, Captain Voss stood alone on the command deck. His expression remained calm, but his voice carried the weight of centuries. Monsters? He said softly, almost to himself. No. Just humans who learned to survive what you could not. He turned to his crew. Transmit the message again. Across the galaxy, the same cold voice echoed once more through every frequency. This is the Retribution. The humans remember what you did. The humans remember everything. Every ship that heard it felt something deeper than fear. It was guilt. Outside, the nebula shone faintly around the Retribution, as if space itself bowed to it. And for the first time in galactic history, the armies of 1,000 worlds stopped firing. Not out of defeat, but because they had finally understood. They hadn't faced one ship. They had faced the return of humanity. The Galactic Council had never seen such destruction. The most powerful fleets in known space, reduced to glowing debris torn apart by a single human ship. Across the stars, transmissions carried the same message. The humans have returned, but not everyone believed it. Some called it a trick, a weapon stolen from a dead race. Others said the humans could not be real. They were myths used to scare young soldiers. Yet the wreckage around Epsilon 7 told the truth. The Council had lost half its fleet. Admiral Kareth watched the chaos from his flagship, the Varn Dominion Spear. Smoke filled the bridge. The faces of his officers showed fear, a rare thing among the Varn. Pull the survivors together, he shouted. We outnumber them still. Across the void, the human ship, HSS Retribution, moved with slow, steady grace. It was like watching a mountain drift through space. Its lights pulsed softly, its weapons recharging from the energy it had stolen from the enemy. Inside the bridge, Captain Arlen Voss stood before the glowing screens, expression unreadable. He didn't smile. He didn't look proud. His crew moved with quiet purpose, as if they had done this 1,000 times before. Multiple fleets converging, said Lieutenant Mara. They're regrouping behind the debris field. Voss nodded. They think hiding behind their dead will save them. He pressed a command on the console. The holographic display shifted, showing a detailed map of the battle zone. Thousands of red dots pulsed the remaining enemy ships. They were forming a tight circle, trapping the Retribution inside. It was a classic strategy. The galaxy's fleets had used it for centuries, but they had never used it against humans. The Retribution didn't move. It waited. Then the alien fleet attacked again from every direction. Beams and missiles lit up the darkness. Explosions flashed like lightning across the nebula. The alien admirals thought they had it cornered. Inside the human ship, alarms filled the air. The bridge shook as the shields flared white. Lieutenant Mara turned to the captain. Shields holding, but we can't take this forever. Captain Voss looked calm. We won't have to. He reached out and activated a sequence on the command screen. Deep within the Retribution, huge engines began to shift. The entire ship vibrated as energy surged through hidden reactors. Space around it started to distort, stars bending, light twisting. Engage the gravity wells, said Voss. The Retribution vanished. One moment it was there, surrounded by enemy ships, and the next, it was gone. The alien commanders screamed into their radios, demanding to know where it went. Scanners went wild trying to track its location. Then, in the middle of their formation, a flash appeared. The Retribution reappeared right behind the command fleet. Its weapons glowed brighter than ever. The humans had folded space itself, jumping through their own gravity field. Before the aliens could react, the Retribution fired. A storm of blue plasma tore through their dreadnoughts. Entire fleets disintegrated in seconds. The space around them turned into a field of fire. Admiral Kareth watched in horror as his flagship's shields began to fail. "Impossible," he whispered. "They are breaking physics itself." He turned toward his officers. "All ships, fire everything. Kill that thing!" The remaining fleets unleashed every weapon they had, filling space with light and fury, but each blast that struck the Retribution only made it stronger. Its hull glowed white-hot, feeding on the destruction around it. "Reactor overload approaching critical," Mara said. Voss stared at the glowing display. "Then let's make it count." He looked at his crew. Every face on the bridge met his eyes, calm, fearless, ready. They had waited generations for this day. "Release the core dampeners," said Voss. Deep inside the ship, magnetic locks opened. The reactor, a fusion of human science and something far older, unleashed its full power. The ship trembled. Energy flooded every weapon system, every circuit, every shield. "Target the command fleet," Voss ordered. The Retribution's central cannon charged. The beam that followed was pure silence, so bright it made the void itself vanish. The explosion ripped through the center of the Galactic Armada, erasing everything in its path. The flagship Varn Dominion spear split apart. Admiral Kareth fell to his knees as the bridge tore open. Through the shattered window he saw the human ship gliding past, fire reflected in its hull. His last words were not orders, they were whispers. So, the stories were true. When the light faded, nothing remained. The alien fleet, the greatest the galaxy had ever built, was gone. Only drifting wrecks and burning trails filled the nebula. The Retribution stood alone again, untouched. Inside, Captain Voss watched the destruction without emotion. "Report," he said. "Enemy fleets eliminated," Mara replied. "No remaining signatures." Voss nodded. "Transmit the message." Across every surviving communication network, one voice echoed. The galaxy challenged one ship. Now it remembers humanity. Every listening world went silent. The words spread faster than light, carried from planet to planet, until they reached even the outer colonies that had never seen Earth. The Retribution drifted quietly through the ashes of battle. The lights along its hull dimmed to a soft blue glow. Its engines turned toward the outer rim. Lieutenant Mara looked at the captain. "Where will we go now, sir?" Voss answered without turning. "Home, if any of it remains." The ship disappeared into the black, leaving behind only the echoes of what once was, the fall of an armada, and the rebirth of a legend. The battle was over. The fires of 1,000 wrecked ships still burned quietly across the dark sea of Epsilon 7. Broken fragments of alien fleets floated aimlessly, glowing faintly against the endless black. And in the middle of that silence drifted the HSS Retribution, the last human warship. Its engines pulsed slowly, like the heartbeat of something that refused to die. Inside the bridge, the light was dim. The crew sat at their stations in silence. Every system was stable, but no one celebrated. There was no cheering, no talk of victory. The air was heavy, filled with a strange quiet that felt older than the stars. Captain Arlen Voss stood in front of the observation window, watching the remains of the galaxy's proudest fleets. "How many?" he asked softly. Lieutenant Mara's voice trembled. "All of them, sir. No enemy ships remain operational. We are alone in this sector." Voss nodded once. "Then it's time." He placed his hand on the console. "Prepare the transmission. To every system. Every channel. Every world that still listens." The communications officer hesitated. "All frequencies, Captain?" "All of them," Voss said. "They must all hear." The officer nodded and began typing. Across the ship, antennas unfolded. Glowing like veins of light, power surged through the communication grid, reaching across the stars. The galaxy, still reeling from the shock of defeat, suddenly went quiet as one signal interrupted every transmission. Screens flickered. Broadcasts froze. Every ship, every planet, every station saw the same thing. A human face. Captain Voss appeared on their screens. His uniform was simple, his eyes cold but calm. Behind him, the stars burned silently through the ship's windows. To the Galactic Council and all who can hear this message, he began. This is Captain Arlen Voss of the human starship Retribution. Across thousands of systems, people listened. Some froze in fear. Others whispered the old word, human. You once called us extinct, Voss continued. You erased our worlds. You burned our colonies. You believed the species of Earth was gone. But you were wrong, he paused. The silence between his words felt heavier than any explosion. Humanity is not gone. We remember what you did. We remember every life you took, every city you turned to ash. We built this ship to carry our memory, to make sure you would never forget. On alien worlds, generals and civilians stared at the broadcast. Some wept, some screamed. Others fell to their knees, realizing that the ghosts they had mocked now stood above them, alive and unstoppable. We did not come for revenge, said Voss. We came to remind you of what happens when you try to erase humanity. We seek no empire, no rule, no throne. But if you raise your weapons against a single human again, he leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping to a whisper. Remember this day. Then the transmission ended. Every screen went black. The galaxy was silent again. No one dared speak. In the following days, the message spread like wildfire. Across alien colonies, across empires and trading routes, the name humanity returned. The Council tried to deny it, but the wreckage of their fleets told another story. Entire planets surrendered before a single human soldier arrived. Governments signed treaties in fear of a species that had not been seen for generations. But no new human fleets appeared. No armies, no colonies, only silence. The Retribution was gone. Some said it had returned to the ruins of Earth. Others said it had gone beyond the galactic rim to rebuild what once was. A few believed it never existed, that it was a warning sent from a forgotten age. Yet, every few years, in the darkest corners of space, strange signals were detected, old human frequencies, repeating a single phrase. We remember. On the edge of known space, deep within a dying star system, the HSS Retribution floated in silence. The ship's hull was scorched, its energy reserves low, but it was still alive. Captain Voss stood on the bridge, looking at a small blue planet through the glass, a ruined world once called Earth. Its surface was covered in dust and ash, but faint lights shimmered through the clouds, signs of life. Rebuilding, Lieutenant Mara approached quietly. Sir, transmission confirmed. The message reached every system. Voss nodded. Good, that will be enough. She hesitated. Do you think they'll leave us alone now? Voss looked out at the pale planet below. They'll try, he said softly. But fear fades. Memory fades. And when they forget again? He looked at the ship's main console where the power core glowed faintly. We'll remind them again. The engines came alive with a low hum. The Retribution slowly turned away from Earth, heading back toward the stars. Its trail glimmered like a blue comet, fading into the darkness. Far away on the Galactic Council's homeworld, silence ruled the Grand Chamber. The surviving leaders gathered, their faces pale and eyes hollow. No one dared to speak first. Finally, an elder counselor whispered, What do we do now? Another answered, voice shaking, We prepare. For what? For the day they come back. In the centuries that followed, the galaxy changed. Wars stopped, armies disbanded. Every civilization lived under a quiet shadow. Children grew up hearing the same story, the tale of a single human ship that faced the galaxy and won. And when they looked up at the stars, they whispered the same warning passed down from world to world. Do not challenge the humans. Behind one ship waits all their wrath,